Hello and welcome to another NDF Interview 2013. With me I have Andrew Bain, who's literally come off the stage in the main room with his trio and thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you very much, Andrew, and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Just for people to know who you are, for who don't know, just tell me a little bit of brief of what you're doing and where you come from.
So I'm a freelance drummer and educator. I'm originally from Edinburgh in Scotland, but I studied in London at the Guildhall School, and I lived in New York for a number of years, from 2001 to 2007, and I've been back living in London, teaching at the Conservatoire, and various amounts of playing since then.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, we had a little chat. You said this was your first year at the NDF this year.
Yeah.
What have you made of it so far?
I think it's excellent. I'm obviously a big fan of vintage gear and anything to do with drums, but there's a warm group of people like yourself and Gary involved, and Simon, and it makes for a really nice atmosphere. Sometimes drum shows, as we were just talking about, can be quite intimidating as a spectator and as a performer, but here there's a lot of people. I've already met some friends who've been there in the audience and checking gear out. It's a nice gathering of people.
Great. So what do you think the best thing is about the NDF?
I think just having this close to Birmingham and in the Midlands with this group of people and having something that exists for us, I think is exceptional. You know, there are other ones around the country that shall remain nameless, but it's just a great sense of community and people meeting each other from all walks of life and all styles. Yeah. It will really, it's just so helpful, you know, and coming from, I mean, I come from Edinburgh, where you know, it's a city, so there's a few things going on, but I do a lot of work around Scotland in rural parts, and just meeting someone else who plays the same instrument and how that can spark you know, so much interest in the music. It's really great, so it's excellent that it exists.
Great, great. Do you have any vintage or custom gear yourself?
I played my Ludwig Supersonic, so I am very proud of that one. But to be honest, I mean, I suppose, to be honest, my Pearl drums are vintage now, but they're only from the 90s. But
yeah, 80s is starting to get vintage now.
80s has been, I'm almost there.
Almost there.
But to be honest, I've always used pretty much modern gear. I look after my gear, so I don't need to replace it too much. And I'm more into manipulating the sound that's there. But that particularly beautiful kit, Sling-A-Lang 65 that I used, there's just something about it that's you feel literally like you're touching the past, connecting, absolutely, and that sound is just a joy to play. You know?
Great. So what's the best thing you've seen here today?
I think the collection of vintage gear is exceptional. I mean, I've never in my life have I been anywhere with this much gear. And at my time in New York, I hung out in Drummers World a lot, which is no longer, unfortunately, at Steve Maxwell's shop. So that's where the snare drum came from. Right. So I've been around that sort of gear, but nothing in this volume. It's just great to hold, touch, to hear.
It's a history lesson, isn't it, really?
It's really great. It's really great.
Great. So what do you think the NDF actually brings to its audience?
Well, what's really nice about this year is at the Birmingham Conservatoire we've been invited to perform.
That's right, yeah, first time this year.
And it's excellent, because obviously we have a lot of students at the Conservatoire who come from Birmingham and the surrounding parts, and they are probably familiar with the show, and we've kind of connected the dots, connected the two lines here. And it's really nice to be playing myself with Percy Perscliffe and Mark Hodgson. Yeah, great players. They're fantastic musicians and educators at the Conservatoire. And then tomorrow with John Toussaint, who played with Art Blakey in The Messengers, so that's exciting. Arnie Summergy and Clark Tracy, who I teach with at the Conservatoire. It's just, what I think is great is students who are really into drums and cymbals can check out players, musicians who are on the scene, who are playing in a professional way. You know, I think it's great. Drums can be fun in any way, just playing in the living room, playing in a practice room. But I think it's great to have that experience of, all right, so that's a live jazz drummer. This is a different live jazz drummer. That's what they're doing with it. Oh, okay, I can see that. That I need to explain what's going on here. But just keeping it real, you know, where it's not backing tracks. You know, it's not any of that. It's a live trio. so you can really see the stuff in action. And what was really exciting to me is to use the vintage drums, but put them in a jazz context like they would have been used in their life.
Yeah.
So that it just kind of hopefully makes it real, and you can kind of see the sounds. And some of my gear is modern, some of it's not, some of it was vintage, and it all sort of comes together, hopefully in a way that, you know, I don't know, maybe inspires.
Yeah, correct. So talking about inspired, who was your inspiration?
Well, a few of the greats, Philly Joe Jones, Max Roach, Roy Haynes, Elvin Jones, Tony Williams, many of everyone's favourites, modern players, Paul Motion, Jack DeJohnette. And living in London and New York, I was lucky enough to see all of those players. I saw Elvin play so much in the room. There's no substitute.
No.
The records are great, and unfortunately with Elvin that's what we have now, because of course he's no longer with us. But the times I was in the room with Elvin, Paul Motion, Jack DeJohnette, and just hearing it live, Steve Gadd at the Blue Note in New York, big influences. And the other guy is Peter Erskine, who I got to know actually when I was in my early years in London. I was his drum tech, like his assistant when he was working with the BBC, with the big band and the orchestra, performing Mark Anthony Turnage's music. So I got to know him, and it eventually worked out that I was a drummer, and we exchanged details. And he's been super supportive actually throughout my career, writing references and recommendations. And my claim to fame is that he put me forward as a dep once. It didn't happen, but I think it counts.
Yeah.
I think it counts.
Definitely. So if there was one gig or event you had to relive, which would it be?
Well, that is a good question. It would be a tough. I have to draw it down to two, and I would say Miles Davis's quintet with Tony Williams in like '64. Obviously, the '64 concert, or '65 with Wayne Shorter, to see that happen. Elvin Jones with Coltrane. You know, in that period with McCoy and Garrison, and just to be in the middle of that would be incredible.
So if you had a time machine, would that be most probably the year you go back to?
Pretty much like the early '60s. You know, early to mid '60s. That's where it would go down. So I could just go to the '64 concert in New York, and then I could go to the Vanguard and see Coltrane play with Elvin. That would be that'd be a good week. Great.
Being an educator yourself, is there any advice you can just like give to people who are starting out or who want to improve on their playing?
The gear is great, but the music is what it's about. And knowing jazz tunes, knowing the repertoire, playing the piano, not playing Chopin, just knowing what the notes of a C triad are, and knowing what the chords of a 12-bar blues are. This is really what it's about. Beyond that, the knowledge of grooves, New Orleans grooves, if it's Steve Gadd's language, Elvin Jones, Tony Williams, knowing what that means, translating that. I mean, everything we know, it comes down to rudiments, it comes down to control, putting that on the kit, and then applying that. And kind of that latter stage is what we get into the conservatoire. You can play drums, excellent, but now, how can you play the music that best fits it?
Great. Is there any clean, funny stories you wish to tell us at all?
I'll tell you one funny story that Peter Erskine actually relayed to me, and it's to do with Elvin Jones testing cymbals. And he said that, I hope he doesn't mind me stealing his story, he said it's something he heard once and has never heard again. And that thing where a jazz drummer tries a right cymbal, dig it in, hit the bell a couple of times, maybe bush it. And he said that Elvin tried the cymbal. So I don't know why he was there, it must have been a drum event, perhaps like this. And Elvin, he got the back of his sticks. And he said, oh, check this out. He went, okay, so he started rolling on the cymbal. And he took it to crescendo, like as loud as you like. Sustain this cymbal like this for enough time for people to start to get a little bit dizzy. Bam! Hits the cymbal, and then takes a stick, does the same sort of thing. That ding ding ding, the bell and whatever it is, boshes it, plays it, and I guess he thought that was the way to get like the cymbal. Following on from those funny, I'm sure you've seen the clips, the YouTube clips of him in the studio. It's like the colour association. We do an edit. So following on from those drum clips where he's in the studio and he's talking about colours. He's
Yeah.
like, this is the red symbol, this is the blue, whatever. So his way of getting into that symbol was literally taking it beyond that. I mean, clearly, the more you play it, dropping it even slightly in pitch.
Yeah.
I don't know, somehow played the symbol in. I thought that's bizarre.
Very bizarre. One final question. If you can invite four guests to a dinner party, dead or alive, who would it be?
Do they have to be drummer?
No, just 4 guests.
Okay, I think
We'll lose that. We've lost that, guys. Never mind.
it's gone. Nothing to do with who I was going to
No.
invite. Who would I invite? I would like to have Louis Armstrong there.
Yeah.
I would like to find out exactly when he was born, and I would like to find out that period, that early period of jazz,
Yeah.
and how the drum kit evolved, and if he was even interested in that, and all those early players that we love, and to see how that evolved. I think I would like to have. I should probably have a thinker in there. I'm going to have John F. Kennedy.
Okay.
You know, I want to find out. I'd like to talk to John F. Kennedy. I think I'd have to have someone there that could cook.
Mm.
So, who shall I have? You know who I love? Raymond Blanc. I'm going to ask Raymond Blanc, but I'm going to ask him to cook. Is that allowed?
Yeah. Why not?
I think that's allowed. And then, last but not least, I'd have a great writer, Charles Bukowski. You ever read any of his stuff?
No, I haven't. Sorry.
It's bizarre, but it's very much based on that sort of beat poet, American literature. I'd have those guys around, and that'd be fun.
Sounds like fun. Anyway, but good food. Guarantee. So anyway, Andrew, it's been a privilege. Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you for this interview. Thank you ever so much.
All the best.
And we'll see you again on another NDF interview.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.